Hey Sam,
Oh, hey there,
we're
Claire.
live.
We're
Hello.
live, we're live, we're live. As Von Helton used to still says. And we're live, we're live,
Are
we're
you
live.
on a waterbed?
No, I'm just my regular friend. I'm like Jabba the Hutt. I'm Jabba the Hutt lounging on his sofa with that little, with Princess Leia on a chain and that little creature. I forgot the creature's name, the little green toady creature. Or some have called me Count. What's the name of the guy from Dune? Baron Harkonnen. Baron Harkonnen,
Ah,
who is in that bath of like also oil or something. It looks like petroleum oil. This what in Dune? It's the what do they call that? What they're all after that.
I haven't seen the
Uh,
movie, I'm afraid, nor read the book, but I think he's a villain, isn't he? Oops,
Yeah,
did I?
Baron Harkonnen is a villain. Is a
Uh
villain. Yeah,
huh. Uh huh.
yeah. But it turns their eyes blue and they get superpowers and everything. But they give it a name. The spice. The spice. I'm
Yes.
after the spice. The spice. I was listening to the Jordan Peterson video you sent me. The
Uh huh.
discussion he had with Rod Dreher, an American living in Budapest in Hungary.
Who's now an Orthodox Christian?
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
I was listening to it. Some points were interesting and stimulating, and but it felt for the most part like Christian apologists or Christian revivalists just jerking each other off. You know,
Yeah.
I hate to use that kind of simple a kind of deduction, but that's as from the my perspective as a Jew that sees the true origins of Christianity, where these two guys are apologists and continue trying to pass off Christianity as some sort of historical or organic religion that has, historical relevance as far as like the stories of the Gospels. That's where they lose me immediately, and
Mm.
that's where I begin to look on them as two really self-deceived people. As much as
Mm.
they are very intellectual and very sharp and analytical, and they have the background, they have the resources, they have the ability to relate things and compare things and see connections and see. But they're using the models and of Christianity, and they're using the dogmas of Christianity, and it puts me off. And then at the same time, Jordan Peterson is throwing a bone to the Jews. Well, the Jews also believe this, but it's in Christianity. Well, listen, buddy, until you face reality, until you face the true history of Christianity, look at the title they gave to their video. Live Not by Lies. That's the book that guy wrote, Rod Dreher.
Yeah.
Can you understand the contradiction there, knowing what you know, Claire?
Yeah.
Live, can you tell me what's wrong with that title for the book he wrote? Live
Well, the
not
thing
by.
is, we have to we have to acknowledge that Dreher was some kind of Christian, and there is a kind of route that these
But yeah,
conservatives take. I mean, okay, most of them are German, of German stock, so they start with their Lutheran church. They don't think it's based enough. They go to Catholicism and find that Catholics are now liberals, and they go over to the
yeah,
Orthodox
that
Church.
should be the
That's
case.
their
Yeah.
route of discovery.
Yeah, yeah. Some of your regular listeners went through this same exact process, and now they've retreated to Eastern Orthodox or Orthodox Christianity, thinking that that's where they'll find their salvation, or that's where they'll make their stand together with the Russians and with Putin and Eastern Europeans that are less compromising, that won't bend as much as Western European and American Christians of whether Protestant or Catholic. But here, I'll share the screen with you.
Hmm.
and let's read about his book. All right, and
Okay.
let's critique it. Okay,
Sure.
entire screen allow. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. You see my
Mm-hmm.
screen?
Yep.
Okay, let's read this. Live Not by Lies, a manual for Christian dissidents by Rod Dreher. Okay, let's see what some of the people who read it had to say about it, or the critique from the New York Times. The New York Times bestselling author of The Benedict Option draws on the wisdom of Christian survivors of Soviet persecution to warn American Christians of approaching dangers. Let me kind of like make the screen a bit bigger. All right, give me a second. Okay. Uh, For years, emigres from the Soviet bloc have been telling Rod Dreher they see telltale signs of soft totalitarianism cropping up in America, something more brave new world than 1984. Identity politics are beginning to encroach on every aspect of life. Civil liberties are increasingly seen as a threat to safety. Progressives, marginalized conservatives, traditional Christians, and other dissenters. Technology and consumerism hasten the possibility of a corporate surveillance state, and the pandemic, having put millions out of work, leaves our country especially vulnerable to demagogic manipulation. In Live Not by Lies, Dreher amplifies the alarm sounded by the brave men and women who fought totalitarianism. He explains how the totalitarianism facing us today is based less on overt violence and more on psychological manipulation. He tells the stories of modern day dissidents, clergy, laity, martyrs, and confessors from the Soviet Union and the captive nations of Europe who offer practical advice for how to identify and resist totalitarianism in our time. Following the model offered by a prophetic World War II era pastor who prepared believers in his Eastern European in his Eastern European congregationalism to endure the coming of communism, Live Not by Lies teaches American Christians a method for resistance. See, acknowledge the reality of the situation, judge, assess reality in the light of what we as Christians know to be true, act, take action to protect truth. Alexander Solzhenitsyn famously said that one of the biggest mistakes people make in assuming totalitarianism can't happen in their country make many American what famously said that one of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming totalitarianism can't happen in their country. Many American Christians are making that mistake today, sleepwalking through the erosion of their freedoms, of our freedoms. Live Not by Lies will make them Live Not by Lies will wake them and equip them for the long resistance. Okay, that's the sort of like opening sort of critique or not critique commentary on that book.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, but I have a lot to add to that. Obviously,
Mm-hmm.
stop screen share. Okay, all right.
Mm-hmm.
So Jordan Peterson is an interesting person. I know he has a lot of issues, health issues, and you know I'm not holding that against him, but he has some mental and emotional, psychological issues that he has to take medicines for,
Oh,
and
right.
yeah, so
Psychotropic medication.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
Oh.
he's very smart and he's very, very well spoken. He's very lucid and fluid in his delivery. It's all good. His oratory is very good, very convincing. But the one thing I take issue with it is again. So he critiqued college, university professors being envious of rich bankers, corporate bankers, and that is the reason why they indoctrinate their students into socialism and communism or revolutionary style ideologies in order to try to get revenge on the capitalists and the corporatists and the bankers once they go out into the real world, having being as bitter as they are. That's his critique. That's his psychological analysis of socialist communist university professors. I think it's very I don't know, too simplistic. Yeah, there's an element of truth to it, but then he goes on and becomes a bit of an apologist for the central bankers and the corporate bankers and the commercial bankers, is saying that people are envious of them. That's why they want to criticize them or take them down or I don't know where again, and his stance, his position on Christianity being a solution, I find that problematic because somebody commented on your on my wall on your question as to why Jews don't call out Christianity as being idolatry. And so one of my friends in Facebook actually did. He's a religious Jew living in Israel, and he
Mhm.
responded to you. And it's the way he would respond to everybody else. And I want to find it. And let's just, connect it to my train of thought here about Jordan Peterson, that they are refusing to look history in the face and acknowledge all the wrongs that were done in the name of Jesus and in the name of Christianity. They want to, idealize Christianity and romanticize it in a way, or idealize it when it doesn't deserve it. I mean, it's only in the recent centuries after Christianity was, defanged, when it had its authoritarian power was reduced or watered down and modified by demands of the masses of all the wars at the Reformation and other things that happened
And the
to.
American Revolution and the French Revolution and the Russian Revolution, which are all rejections of Christianity and monarchy.
Yes, yes. So my friend here is responding to you when you wrote, "Drives me crazy. Jews don't come out and say Christianity is idolatry." So a friend of mine on Facebook, Baruch Avraham Ben Rachel, responded, "It is idolatry. It's polytheism. It's thievery. It's destruction. Garbage. It's garbage. A sewer line cult." And I told him, "Hey, good for you.
Great.
Great that you took answered her challenge." So in truth, Jews do believe this about Christianity, but because they find themselves in a real sort of like a conundrum with liberal Western society, having run amok and lost its bearings and lost its morality and lost its humanity, and it became so depraved. They have to retreat to finding allies in believing Christians as a sort of a coping method, or trying to ally with the masses that have been so screwed up by liberal Western values, giving up on religious Christian values, which are primarily Jewish values mixed in with the Greco-Roman pagan values that the Romans inserted into what became Christianity. So, it leaves a bitter taste in the Jews' mouths to have their religion again, like the cultural appropriation and the religious appropriation, and then an attempt to usurp and not give credit. Or Jordan Peterson tries, well, the Jews also happen to believe this. Well, yeah, buddy. Yeah, look up Rodney Blackhurst to find out what the Romans did to create Christianity. The biggest issue I have is he's trying to absolve the Christians that are, primarily use Christianity for thievery, for conquest, for imperialism, for indoctrination, for brainwashing. And Jesus
Yeah,
is Jesus is a tool of authoritarianism. He's not a tool meant to free people's minds. He's a tool meant to capture people's minds and
it
to make them.
allows them to break all the rules that other people are supposed to follow, and then it, believe that they go to heaven just if they claim to believe that Jesus is God and that express remorse for their sins. All these sort of mafia movies of these Catholic gangsters who basically think they've gotten away with it with their Catholicism and their last rites.
They took that from Jewish mystical beliefs. They take that from our beliefs. We didn't borrow from them. They stole everything, all these concepts and beliefs from us. It's not that you get completely absolved But when you're penitent, even in your last breath, your last breaths of life, if you do regret and you're penitent and you ask for forgiveness, it's in Judaism as well. And if you are, in a state of fear for your afterlife, for being judged and all that, a lot of your past sins, it's not that they'll be absolved, but the fact that you were contrite before you died and you asked for forgiveness and you recognize God and you were regretful of all the evil that you've done in your life doesn't absolve you all 100%, but it does help you in the
Mm-hmm.
in your personal judgment when you go into your afterlife. You know, the Catholics took it all the way to being completely absolved, and you'll enter heaven. No, 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 no. It doesn't balance anything out. It's just a good little sort of gesture, or not even a gesture. It works to your favor. It's a plus for you. It doesn't save you from having to go through the fires of hell to have your soul be purified. And it doesn't, the judgment in heaven and the heavenly court will count it as in your favor as an advantage that you did that, but it's not going to absolve you of all your sins. And you're not
Mm-hmm.
going straight to heaven just by for saying in your last minutes, your last moments of life, when you're taking your last breaths, God forgive me, and I pray for forgiveness, and you're penitent, and you believe, and you're asking for forgiveness. That's where, again, they modify everything. They take concepts, modify them in order to make things, to sweeten the package for Christians or Catholics, in order to make the religion more appealing, a false religion. They take a lot of concepts from Judaism, modify them, change them in order to keep their believers believing and to win over converts. But see, that's the thing about these intellectuals. I mean, Jordan Peterson and this Dreher guy, they're good talkers. They're good analysts. They have the historical facts. They can, connect them to the current, predicament of where we are in Western civilization. They can do all the deconstruction and analysis, and basically to let us know how we got here, because that's a very important that's a very important activity, to be able to criticize, deconstruct, and form a clear understanding of how we got here.
Mm-hmm.
And because that's the only way out of it, is to understand how we got into it.
Mm-hmm.
But their proposals, again, they're it's like they're jerking each other off, because
Yeah,
at the end of the day.
because they don't understand that, when Christianity did work once upon a time, but it's lost its power because
Mhm,
governments have lost the will to enforce belief
mhm.
after the Enlightenment. And the ruling classes no longer believe in it themselves. So
Not
they
only
have no will to enforce Christianity and make everybody Christian and force them into church and ostracize them if they don't go to church like they used to do. They don't have
yeah,
the will anymore. I mean, that's why it can't be done.
it's not that they not only have the will, they've invested so much into liberalism and secular humanism and philosophy and freedoms and liberties, and religion not being totalitarian, religion not being authoritarian, religion not being done by force. And people will never accept religion shoved down their throats by force, by man, by any a government, by any a human authority, anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was the whole point. The reason for the Reformation, it was all these Christian monarchs who were basically saying, we're not going to be, we're not going to have our morals and our politics regulated by the Pope in Rome. I mean, that was basically what the Wars of the Reformation was all about. They still wanted their religion, so they became their own Pope. They became their own Pope and basically interpreted Christianity any way they liked. And now they're interpreting it as liberalism.
Well, now there's this reactionary movement to try to balance the scales of allowing Christianity to become way too liberal, way too a sort of do as you will.
Mm.
Jesus will, it'll all be
Forgive everything. Yeah.
Jesus will forgive everything. It'll all be resolved in your afterlife. But they're trying to tip the scales because, not tip the scales, balance the scales because they see where that is taken the world now. It's reached the end of its line. It's reached the end of the line. There's no way of a sort of like uh, taking taking blood out of the stone. Am I using the proper expression? There's no way you could squeeze blood out of the stone anymore. But
No,
the point,
because I don't think they even believed in it, at the beginning. I mean, it's so absurd that it was really impossible to believe, I'm sure. But, the state intimidation was so terrible that everybody just had to pretend that they believed.
right? It was a
That's my
model.
belief of how it actually worked.
It's a pretense. It's an artificial model that a majority of them accept as some sort of a myth. Jesus is. They say it. They write it. It's written in their New Testament. Jesus is a myth for the world, and so they accept that it could be a fake model, an artificial model. They could say it's a metaphysical model if they want to, give it euphemisms, or it's a spiritual model that never existed in real life, but it was meant to be used in order to provide for an organizational, really theological system for to regulate society or to organize society, balance society. They do a lot of the academic gymnastics in their minds, but when they're forced to defend the historicity, then they get caught with their pants down. All the skeptics expose the historicity of early Christianity to be a total and complete fraud, and actually a machination of the fascist Roman imperial state. And that's the most difficult thing for them to swallow. Again, they can intellectualize all this. They can be very elegant and eloquent in their wordsmith, working, putting the words together and making these ideas sound so, intelligible and understandable, and sophisticated as well. And look at how I see things in such a clear light. But what they always want to conceal, if not consciously, or if they're not aware of it, they're concealing the fraudulent nature of Christianity. They have to look that in the face. They cannot escape that. And the answer will be God's authority, and God's truth and God's revelation, not human organization, not human government, not human. That's why it's called the end times. That's why it's called a revelation. The Greek terminology, apocalypse, God revealing his face, unveiling the face of God. They took that from the Jews, God revealing himself. Messianic era, God ruling through the Messianic, the Messiah, through his conduit, his servant, just like as Moses did, but now it's in a completed, absolute way, without human government, without human intervention, without this, mental masturbation, without these two guys, being impressed by one another and making the arguments they make. They can make impressive arguments. I can listen to it. I can go through it, but then at the end of it all, I just, like, as a Jew that knows his God, that knows the intrigues of what had happened over the century. There's something said about us. It's in the prophets. We have knowledge of the families of the world, and it's because of this that we also have a special role to play, because we've lived through all of these contrivances and these deceptions and all this pseudo intellectuality and all this, like, a highfalutin. We're so wise, we're so smart, we know how to organize society, we know how to balance things out, and we know how to use Christianity, even though deep down inside we know it's a ruse of the government, from the ancient government from 2,000 years ago. They all have a sense of it. They all had a sense of it, even before I read Caesar's Messiah, or I saw the documentary, listened to Joseph Atwell. In the back of my mind, when I was looking and researching and looking into it, it's like the Prince of Peace. And this is before Joseph Atwell sees Caesar's Messiah. And other sources I was looking into and reading, Jesus is referred to as the Prince of Peace. And guess who else was referred to as the Prince of Peace in the first century? Augustine, not Augustus, not Augustine, Caesar Augustus.
Caesar, the first emperor of Rome.
Yeah, he was called the Prince of Peace, and
Well,
you can't help but make
after
the
he won the
parallel.
Civil War. I mean,
What?
as the Romans would joke, after war you have peace.
Yeah, well, that's the whole point of Christianity and the invention of Jesus. And these guys go on and on about Barabbas was actually, his name was Jesus also, and it's so deep. Oh wow, look at this. There's multi layers. There's new discoveries. And it has philosophical depth and meaning, whatever. I'm getting my lunch. I'm getting served here like a big fat fucking Jabba the Hutt, being a getting spoiled. Yeah, anyway,
How nice.
I don't care what anybody has to say. Fuck you. I don't care. People that have issues with my it's my current circumstances. Things will change. Anyway, where was I? Okay, yeah, they're making these profound, insights about Barabbas was the political Jesus, and the Jesus that got crucified was the spiritual Jesus. You want to hear this? I mean, it's pablum puke. Once you know the true history of Christianity and what they're attempting to do here, and to trying to infuse a Christianity with life as far as being relevant or a sort of worthy of being adopted and understood in these ways of like deep meaning, esoteric meaning, philosophical meaning. And you know that it's one big huge scam. As a Jew, you know it's a scam. You've listened to Rabbi Singer for forever, exposing it and his complex way of proving that the New Testament is not just forgeries and scams. They're deliberate, lies, but retellings and re-engineering of the what the Christians call the Old Testament. They draw all of their inspiration from the prophets. They draw all of their inspiration from the Hebrew Bible, and then they're conceited enough to throw the Jews a bone and say, well, yeah, maybe they had this understanding, the Jews, but the Christians sort of like added to it or expanded on it and improved on it, and we shouldn't be bitter towards you, you fucks, and that's also Shylock in Shakespeare's tale of Merchant of Venice. Merchant of Venice. Shakespeare again. They were crypto Jews. They were Italian, Moroccan Jews. That what's her name? Amelia Bassano and her other crypto Jew lover was Christopher Marlowe. And it's true. I mean, and I hear Valiant and Berman poo-pooing the Caesar's Messiah, Joseph Atwell's Shakespeare's Secret Messiah, and pretending like that doesn't make sense to them, that it's too far-fetched. I mean, even these guys that are the skeptics, that are the scholars as to exposing, that know how to expose the Roman provenance and agree with Roman provenance, have an issue with Atwell's proposal that the authors of Shakespeare knew the true Roman provenance origin of Christianity in the Gospels, and hid a lot of hidden meanings into the plays of Shakespeare, exposing this understanding, and also into the King James Bible that they interpreted into English in the Psalms, hiding their name, Shakespeare, in one of the Psalms. It's amazing. I mean, I could find this for you. It's online still, and it makes perfect sense. They were cryptic in the way they hid their knowledge of the fact that Christianity was a Greco-Roman scam of the first century. Now, things like this, Jordan Peterson has a hard time making peace with, and he'll try to again convolute and draw and cast shade and make it and argue against it in a way.
Yes, they have to, Sam. Otherwise, the Islam beckons, because there's nothing else, right? I mean, it
Islam
can't
is
be Hinduism.
Christianity
Well, I mean, if they are looking for a religion to fight all,
I'm sorry to be offensive towards you, Claire, but Islam is a compromise with Christianity. I mean, it
I
has
know.
to be. I mean,
I understand. It's
it's not going to be Islam. It's not. These people are intelligent. They are not going to adopt the Quran Islam when it has Christianity in it. They'll take a shit on that when they realize Jesus is fake. Now, the prophet Jesus, the Islamic Jesus, it's all horseshit. The whole fucking Jesus thing is horse shit. It's made up crap that through the ages the shit rolled downhill, and it made it somehow legitimate, and Islam swallowed that shit and included it in the Quran. They're not
I know,
They're not going to be
that would
Muslims.
be
They're
the
not.
way of, making it easier for the Christians to come
But
over.
it's the same fucking compromises that Jordan Peterson is making with
It's not a
Christianity.
compromise, really.
Intellectualize it and make it philosophical. And Islam is doing the same thing with compromise. These are half measures. I told you, they are never, ever going to be Islamic once they realize that Jesus is a fraud. Never. They'll not accept
But I
Muhammad.
don't think they will accept that he never existed, whatever. They're going to say, okay, he's not God. I mean, that would be kind of easier for them to accept that he never existed.
No. The final conclusion that a lot of the Gentile Christian pagan idolaters or quasi watered down pagan idolaters and the Muslims will accept soon enough is that they'll know God. There'll be universal knowledge of God, and this confusion will go flying out the window. So they're not going to be Muslims, and the Christians are not going to be, and the Muslims are not even going to be Muslims, in my opinion. Soon enough.
Well, that's only assuming the Messiah arrives. I'm saying, if he doesn't arrive, then people will just have to be left with the.
Okay, well, you can go on, on this treadmill, and constantly pursue this. I know you're also a woman on a mission. You're on this treadmill with them. You're on a treadmill with Christians and Muslims, and you're going to end up chasing your own tail because the Christian people like Jordan Peterson and the author, they'll be able to investigate the full truth. And if they finally, if the coin drops with them, as it did with Atwell and others, that are, or a lot of the New Testament skeptics, and you have pagan, New Age, what do you call those Gnostics that also want to revive Gnosticism and say that the whole story of the whole gospel story is all mythical or it's all myth. That's how they manage to propagate.
I know, but they'll get nowhere because these Gnostics have no doctrine, they have no scripture.
But Islam is based on Judaism and Christianity. I gave those guys in those panels can shove their fucking Islamic dogma straight up their asses, assuming that Judaism and Christianity didn't influence Muhammad and the authors of the Quran.
But
and
that
was divinely inspired, and it had nothing to do. We didn't adopt their belief. It's the completion and perfection of both Judaism and Christianity. God, no.
Well, that's a narrative anyway. It may not appeal to you, but
the false crap dogmas of Christianity are not going to be replaced by the false crap dogmas of Islam. No, it's not going to happen. No, it's just not going to happen.
Well, I'm just saying, if the Messiah doesn't arrive, I mean, the next religion would be Islam because it has a better scripture than the New Testament, and it's against idolatry.
The Christians will prefer to die, other than instead of adopting or converting to Islam. Because
quite a few of them do convert to Islam slowly, but
if they do, fine. But they still want to hold on to Jesus. That's why they convert to Islam.
Yeah, and they can hold on to Jesus because Jesus is regarded as a prophet of God.
I, as a Jew, knowing the true nature of Jesus, and it's no longer a question. There's no doubt about it. There's no more debating and arguing over it. They would like this argument to perpetuate. They would like this debate, this nonstop fucking vomitous debate to continue after 2,000 years. And I say no. I will fight and I will, argue against both the Islamic Jesus and the Christian Jesus, because it's a fucking machination and it has nothing to do with God. Absolutely nothing to do with God. And the Muslims won't accept that because they have their pride in wanting to win over Christian converts. That's their path. That's their entryway. That's their little, that's their little tool. That's their little instrument. And again, these are lies. These are fucking lies. And the fact that you have a hard time coming to terms with the fact that we are in the process of messianic revelation and all the signs are there, and once the whole entire fucking charade ends and the whole edifice comes crashing down, no Christian will be considering converting to Islam in the time when he has to care for feeding his kids and protecting his life and protecting the community where he lives from marauders. And so the same goes for civilized Muslims living over there in England. They'll be worried about feeding themselves. They won't be worried about.
But the solution eventually would be to adopt the.
No, they won't adopt it. Once we have messianic, that's what entails messianic.
But you're assuming that's going to happen, and
I'm not assuming. I have full faith. I know it's going to happen. It's a big.
But not everybody agrees with you that it's going to happen.
I'm all right if they don't agree. It's going to happen. It's going to be thrust upon them. It's not about Christian revival and the fucking Crusades and bow down to Jesus and convert to Christianity at the edge of a sword, or Islam doing it in a similar way. It's not going to happen that way anymore. Okay, so debates and arguments and back and forth, and it can get heated and everything. Fine. It's like a dog chasing its own tail at this point. There will be a resolution. The resolution will be the collapse and the humbling. And then Christians and Muslims and the Jews will be gone because everybody will be blaming them and pursuing them. I'm telling you, this is a forecast of the near future. It's on the horizon. It's very clear that it's on the horizon. All this academic back and forth debating and criticism is all good and fun. It's like a stimulating academic exercises in getting a one up on the other. Jordan Peterson is very good as a debater, as an analyst, and very snide when he has all this information to one up his opponent. But that's not my objective. My objective here is the process that we are in, that most Gentiles will not be fully aware of, or not even it's not that they're not aware of it, they don't know what it entails. It's in the prophets. There will be universal knowledge of the one God. That's a threat to both Christianity and to Islam, that use all sorts of machinations, tricks, enticements, tools, temptations, well, we have a different version of Jesus, and it's a little more tasteful. It's less distasteful than the pagan idolatrous Jesus, but you can still have your Jesus. The Jesus you can't live without, you'll just have an Islamic Jesus. And you have those fucking converts getting all pissy over, questioning Jesus' existence when they claim to be Islamic converts from Christianity to Islam. Oh, they get all offended. They get all butthurt. And that's useful for the knowledge, the full universal knowledge of God, to have this fucking thing of 2,000 years in the way, whether it's Christian or Islamic. It's a fucking obstacle. It's meant to be an obstacle. If you want true divine knowledge of God, you're going to get it soon, very soon.
Okay, I mean, Sam. Okay, your plan A, because you think the Messiah's arriving, and I'm just saying, I'm just plan B, in case he doesn't. That's all.
All right. But for me, it's very distasteful. For you, it's a strategic, forward-thinking plan as far as not leaving Christians to dangle in the wind, but and giving them the net of safety, the safety net of converting to Islam. I understand that. They have other options. They have Noahidism. If the Messiah should be delayed for another 1,000 years, maybe, which he's not. Or they have some sort of rationalism or deism, like the founding fathers. And you heard their argumentation, Jordan Peterson and this guy Dreher, about left and right, and the different hemispheres of the brain, the left and the right side of the brain, and then they want to argue that Orthodox Christianity balances more the pragmatic balance between left and right, and but at the same time, the history of both these streams of Christianity, and the bloodletting and the mass murder and the horror of everything that was done in those countries under the rulership of the religious leaders and the monarchies.
Well, you mean the imperial wars of so many centuries?
All of them, and the religious wars, and it's also Bolshevism and all that during the first part of the 20th century.
Yeah, but all these terrible revolutions and wars happened because the government was not doing the right thing, and that's what causes wars and revolutions.
And they were rubbing it in the face of the people, being totally two-faced, totally hypocritical, and totally. And again, Jordan Peterson will be an apologist for capitalist bankers. I'm not a Bolshevik, and I'm not a communist. And I told you again, I'm not one of these people that thinks that the state should have the authority over, ruling over people's free enterprise and independent, businesses. I believe in free market capitalism. I'm not against it, but when it turns into corporate, underhanded, fascistic type of capitalism, hell yeah, I'm against it. That's what we're dealing with today, and he can't come to terms with that. He continues to apologize for bankers.
Yeah, because there are these sacred cows in the mind of Western man, which is Christianity, which is democracy, which is liberalism, and they're still sacred to him, and they're all turned rotten at the same time.
Yeah, so that's why he totally turns me off. That's why I see him as a sort of like a sad person, a sad character that is as intelligent and as good of a wordsmith as he is, as good as of a.
He's still in denial.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's where I agree.
And he still doesn't understand the burnt and bloody history of Christianity, and how Christians were force-fed this idea that Jesus is God, and would be routinely threatened, burnt at the stake if they deny the divinity of Jesus. So, and that's why it can't be revived. I mean, that's my position, that nobody wants to go back to the days of burning heretics.
Yes, but the resentment that it builds towards secular humanists, atheists, liberals, they and Jews, it is obvious, and it's understandable why. At the end of the day, when they realize that they're at their wits' end and they cannot revive Christianity in this way, it is controlled up as an intelligence asset. Yes, in a certain way, yes, I agree with you, Hail Hillary. Very good point. I listen to him. I lend him an ear to understand and to learn what these people think and what these people are proposing. But immediately, a person like myself and other Jews that have come to the full realization conclusion that it is at its origin, at its roots, the worst of the worst, tools of an authoritarian government, a fascist government, and he wants to argue for the pluses and all the contributions, or all the all that Christianity has managed to improve on or gain throughout history. It's but it's again, it's when you are unwilling to look reality in the face and the full truth in the face, the revealed truth about the true origins of Christianity, you will lose a majority of people that will not lend you an ear. They will not listen to you. They will look upon you as like what Hillary is suggesting, controlled opposition, or a dupe, or a self delusion, a delusional person that's deluding himself, self-delusional, and no matter how smart you are, and this applies to Alex Jones as well. He tries his best. He pours his heart out about Christianity and Jesus, and he knows it's like you're not going to win over a majority of the Jews that have to suffer with Christianity. They didn't know the true origins. They had a suspicion. Throughout history, we had a suspicion. That's why we always called Christianity a Roman religion, the religion of Edom, even from its origins, its roots in the first century. The mystery of it was not fully revealed to us. All the details were not fully revealed to us. That's where the mystery laid, and that's what helped to perpetuate and propagate Christianity and the lies of Christianity, when the Jews could not fully formulate a clear deconstruction of early Christianity or proto-Christianity. But the authors of Shakespeare understood it. They were high-functioning intellectuals that understood language, Greek, Latin, Hebrew. They understood it to the max, to the fullest, to the finest detail. They were probably even better than Joseph Atwell. They were probably even better than Bruno Bauer, but they were repressed. But the beauty of what came out of their being repressed is the imagination and the creativity of Christopher Marlowe and Emilio Bassano. And it could have been Sir Francis Drake, could have been a part of their team as well. He was anti-authoritarian, church, mind control. We're all talking about mind control as far as the media, as far as government, as far as education, and it has its roots in Christianity and the church. That is the one thing they will never allow to come out of their mouths, because they want to paint Christianity in a positive sense, in a positive light, as being, altruistic, when it's not. It wasn't. That's not how it began. That's not what its true purpose was.
I guess it's because, Christianity was what made the West great. So they can't, give up that idea. But then if they see history as a continuing process, because we will, also will one day become history, then we will understand that the story is not over. And the reason, if there is a God who allowed Christianity to acquire 3 global empires, well,
it was all God's
has an
will.
ultimate purpose. Because once a global empire collapses, something will be moving into its vacuum, and I'm saying it has to be Islam. What else would there be if the Messiah doesn't arrive?
Islam is by virtue of the fact that Islam is a compromise with Christianity, it will never take over the Christian world, and neither will communism, and neither will the Chinese, and neither will the Russians. We are living in exactly what you stated, a vacuum. And according to Jewish esoteric eschatological beliefs on the end times, when we reach this kind of phenomenon and phase in history, that's when the Messiah steps in. All right? So this is where we don't see eye to eye. This is where we'll agree to disagree.
Yeah, and I will give you my reasons why I don't think the Messiah will come according to your rules, because I think it's only when the situation is completely hopeless and there is no solution, then you can, expect the Messiah.
No, there isn't a solution. Islam is flawed. Islam is a readaptations of Judaism and Christianity, and it's exposed as being readaptations of Judaism and Christianity. And a majority of people that are semi-educated in the West or fully educated will never adopt Christianity, not willingly, unless it's forced and thrust down their throats, which they won't accept. Just as they won't accept Christianity thrust down their throats by force, they will resist it.
But all sorts of things are thrust down their throat, like globo homo and transgenderism. They had to take that already. So it's just a matter of getting the Fourth Estate to cooperate with the rolling out of the program.
No, they're on the verge of purging all of it now. They want to have this hope in the back of their minds that somehow Christian revival will give them structure, but that is going to be that is all going to be purged. That is all going to be vomited out. The people that are still normal, the people that do feel this desperation, the people that are fair and honest do not and will not accept any human form of manipulation or deception thrust down their throats. They are going to expunge it, purge it, throw it up, and no other human machination is going to take the place of what they're going to purge and throw up. They do not want to be subjugated. They do not want their minds to be subjugated. Now we are in a transition phase. No opportunistic, movement or something waiting in the wings is going to take the place of what they're going to throw up. When they throw Christianity up completely, and they come to terms with the truth and it's part of what's happening now, is part of revelation and messianic revelation. It's in my opinion, 100%. That's how I see it, how I interpret it. You could see it in another way. The Western world is so sick of, just like you said, liberalism, intersectionality, what they already discarded, their old Christianity. They don't, a majority don't want that. They don't want to revive it. The ones that are, sentimental, the intellectuals and the philosophers like Jordan Peterson and his lot, his, whatever.
Mhm.
They want this because they see it as a, the fallback position. And everybody's sentimental about their religion and it being the fallback position, but again, this is the challenge and this is the test. And even I can get into a heated debate with you, a disagreement, an argument over it, because we are in a fight. This is a conflict, but it's ultimately God's conflict to win. God, and we know 2,000 years of Christianity versus Judaism, and 1,300 years of Islam versus Judaism was always this question, waiting in the back of people's minds, waiting in the background, kind of hanging over our heads. We'll find out when it arrives. That's what everybody said. That's was a way of kind of like calming everyone's nerves and calming the conflict, or the abrasive nature of arguing over who's the Messiah and what's the Messiah.
Yeah, people will say we'll agree to disagree. Yeah, I totally get that. But God won't agree to disagree when, assuming there's an afterlife. He won't say, "Oh, Christians will just agree to disagree about me being a dead Jew on a stick." Ooh, he won't be saying that to Christians.
No, he won't. But the thing is that the Jews are a minority, one of the smallest minorities, if not the smallest minority, living amongst the Gentile nations dispersed around the world. And their only refuge and sanctuary is their Jewish homeland now in the end times. And they feel vulnerable, so they'll continue to, keep their mouths shut when Christian
Yes.
when Christian missionaries and evangelicals try to throw Jesus into their face. Whether they want to warm up and coddle up to Christians, and Christians, want to, in their typical fashion.
Because they're social conservatives. Because I guess the people who identify as Christians, they'll be talking about marriage and family values, all the traditional values, which I suppose traditionalist Jews would also identify with.
It appeals to them, and they want that, so they will compromise. And they will, be diplomatic and not talk back to the Christians when Christians want to throw Jesus into their face or threat Jesus into the debate or mention Jesus. So it's like they're challenging and testing the Judas.
Yes, but they're compromising on the most important principle of all, which is that of idolatry.
But they want their bagel and schmear, whether in New York or in Florida. They want their nice little BMW convertible or their Mercedes SUV, and they want their nice house, and they want their comforts, and they want their illusion of, just as Mel K said, "I love you, baby. You're beautiful." But at the same time, she goes, "We'll get over this little bump. We'll get over this hump. This little bump we'll have to get over. We'll be victorious, and we'll get over this little bump."
How does she see the bump being gotten over? I mean, what's the prognosis for the future?
The last interview she gave, she's talking to an organic, holistic sort of practitioner, farmer in Hawaii, Kauai, and she's talking about proper nutrition and everything, and she's employing wishful thinking, and this is where a lot of Jews, of her same kind of background, that are at heart traditionalists, conservatives, and believers, and but they won't surrender their lives in America. So in her mind, she's making this argument and rationalization that we'll get over it. We'll get over this bump. We'll get over this little.
But how does she see it being gotten over? What scenario does she?
Well, it's about by way of technology and farming and local government and local usage of new technologies to basically make in this on the state level, on the local city.
The government of America will miraculously improve and sort itself out.
Right, right,
That's
right.
what she thinks is going to happen.
Very well stated there, Claire. Yeah, and also the innovation and the resourcefulness and the sort of like American spirit of like roll up your sleeves and
The can-do spirit of America.
can do, let's go, can do spirit, right? Let's roll, and let's roll. Yeah, right. It's like, oh, that's all good and fine, and she can believe in that as much as she likes. And I'll respond to her as I responded to you, and what you don't believe in, what she obviously does not believe in either, because it sounds ridiculous to her. It sounds so unbelievable, and like she'll accuse me of being delusional, like I'm self-delusional. I know. Well, you're not gonna defeat the will of the Creator. You're not. You're just not.
Okay. I can sort of see. We just have to kind of try and anticipate the will of the Creator, and you're saying it's going to be this way, and I'm saying, well, if he exists, he'll be saying to these Westerners, hey, you guys, you haven't tried Islam, have you? You've just been talking shit about it all these years,
All right.
and well, you haven't tried it. So go on and see how it goes.
I told you again, what my rabbi said about Islam is that it will sort of like spread throughout the Western world and be far more powerful as an influence. I wouldn't say it'll be fully dominant, but what he said is that it wasn't racist. He said it very simply. He said white Christian Western power is waning. It's weakening, and it has been a refuge for the Jews, despite the fact that for the most part, for all of history, it was actually persecuting Jews, and it was actually a force for wanting to exterminate, get rid of the Jews, either by way of missionizing them, compromising them, or genociding them. Or constantly expelling them from one place to another, by way of attrition. That's what the purpose of it was. It's very nefarious. But now, because of liberal Western, values based on a modification of Christianity by way of the religious wars, the imperial wars, the Reformation, all that had happened, all the world wars. It's like Christianity watered down and modified and made less authoritarian and less forced. It gave the Jews, again, in America, mostly, a sort of like a nest egg, a warm nest, a sort of like a comforting a refuge that was far, to them, is still far more appealing than Israel is, despite the fact that everything's falling apart and degenerating in the West and in America especially. And that's all God's hand, the hand of God that they do not recognize, or they willfully ignore, that they understand it's really him, but they are in a struggle with him, pretending like it's not him. All right. They do have a perception. It's called the Jewish soul. They do have a perceptive soul. They do have a receptive soul. They do know when God's hand is functioning, especially when it's pushing them and it's functioning in order to convince them and persuade them, and they still ignore it, and they want to call it a bump in the road. Melanie, you're so cute.
Is Melanie a religious Jewess?
No, she has a non-Jewish boyfriend.
Okay.
Rob,
but does she believe in God?
Rob, she made sure to mention Rob, so that this schmuck in Israel shouldn't assume that he has any sort of chances of getting together with the Melanie. I got the gist, Melanie. I'm not in hot pursuit of you, Melanie, despite the fact that you're a Jewish chick. I'll grant you that. I'll give you that compliment. But I'm not interested in you romantically. I'm interested in persuading you into realizing what where and what is where we have arrived and what to expect. And You can mock me, and you and Rob in the privacy of your apartment over there on the east side can joke about this fat Jabba the Hutt fuck in his bedroom in Haifa, talking to you about messianic revelation. But even Zelensky, not Zelensky, Dr. Zelenko, Zev Zelenko of blessed memory, may his memory be blessed, a righteous man, talked about the Messiah a lot, but he refused to consider returning to Israel or telling his religious community to return to Israel. So the same thing applies to you. It is the phenomenon of basically refusing to let go of Jesus is the same as the Jews of the diaspora. I said it and I'll say it again, refusing to let go of the diaspora. You refuse to let go of your Mercedes-Benz, of your nice little illusion of retirement in Florida, of your the SUVs, or I live in my sophisticated metropolitan lifestyle. Even though that's all falling to pieces, it's all falling apart. And even if whatever, I have friends in New York that moved out of New York and they were lifetime New York, sort of like proud New Yorkers, dedicated to New York and living in New York. They broke. They took their whole entire families, moved to South Carolina and Florida and all these places. But they don't realize when the whole edifice falls in on itself, there is no place to hide in America. Those cities are going to collapse in on themselves, and then they're going to come looking for you. There's too many of them. There's too many masses of them, Yeah, you're not going to be able to fend off the zombie apocalypse and the zombies, no matter how much guns you have, no matter how much you think the police is on your side or the military. Once the shit hits the fan, you're going to be shit out of luck. And these are, warnings being repeated a million times over to you. And it's just like what you said, like the argument we're having. It's not going to be understood or accepted or fully sort of like in your face. You're not going to digest it and swallow it until it happens, and it's going to happen. The same goes with your argumentation about Islam being the safety net for Christianity. When Christianity falls apart, I'll say when everything falls apart, neither Christianity or Islam it will stand a chance against the will of the Creator, the true universal knowledge of the one God, which is not fucking Jesus again, not the mythical Gospels Jesus, not the Islamic Reformation recreation of Jesus as a prophet, and all the whatever Ebionite stories.
But the most authoritative document that mentions Jesus is the Quran. I mean, it's not Joseph Atwell's book.
Islam is again was formulated out of a sects of Christianity that were rejected, during the conflict over the true form or the accepted universal form that was agreed upon by the Romans, by the Byzantines. On the fringes, a lot of sects managed to survive. They couldn't wipe them all out, and Islam adopted the teachings of those sects about Jesus and not being a divinity, not being God, rather a prophet, and it was incorporated into Islam. And I'll tell you this: we know and understand how those sects came about in the first and second centuries. Sean Stone made good mention of it. It's like its original engineering and design was meant to be as a military psychological operation, concocted by the Hellenistic Jews of the first century, imperial lackeys that were the Alexander family, the Herods, and who were Arabs themselves, Edomites, together with the Flavians. Okay, it was a practical response to violent Jewish nationalism, violent Jewish messianism. And once it was released into the thought world of the Greco-Roman Empire, the Roman Empire, it was just like their claim. It was that Paul is spreading it, the first evangelical, the first missionary, and he managed to hop around all of Rome, Ephesus, Corinth, Rome. He got to all these places, whatever. Bullshit. It was the Roman imperial cult spreading these scrolls and these by way of plays, theatrical plays. And so it got into the mindset, it got into the minds of the first century Greco-Romans, and they took it in hand. They took these plays that were written as plays. The Gospels were written in play form by playwrights to be performed in front of live audiences. And so they took that and they started building on it and formulating organic streams of Christianity that were not the original intent of the the fascists to put it into the public there, the public square. All right, that is the true history of the Gospels. That is the embarrassing, humiliating history of the Gospels, and then it propagated through the empire, and Marcion got his hands on it, and all these writings were later embellished and worked on. And once the empire adopted it, after it had its gestation, after it had its proto phase, that's when all of these streams and cults and sects had to be repressed and pursued. That's what Constantine actually desired, and that's what he implemented.
Well, Constantine was an Arian. He wasn't a Trinitarian, and his son was also an Arian.
Fine, but it took its form. It took its final form in the 4th century. But whether Constantine desired a Trinitarian form of Christianity or not, or whether he was an Arian, I believe you're right. He was an Arian. Its true form of Trinitarianism that came about. It came about because of the Romans having a problem of absorbing pagan cults of that time into a universal Roman religion, Catholicism. So they made compromises. The Trinity was there from the get-go, from the 1st century, hiding the Caesars behind the Trinity. The father being Flavius Vespasian.
But this is not generally accepted and will be quite difficult to prove.
It doesn't have to be generally accepted. It's just there on a bold-faced in the Gospels themselves. And Atwill proved it thoroughly through his parallelism and typology. And Domitian is the Holy Spirit. And the Shakespearean thesis and conspiracy theory also proves it in what's that? in Claudius or something? What's the name of that other play where there's mention there's a reference to Domitian catching flies? It's all there. It's
King Lear? I don't know.
Anyway, it's one of the Shakespearean plays where Atwill noticed that the authors of Shakespeare fully realized and understood the history of the Romans, the 1st century Flavians, and they included
Coriolanus?
No. Wait, it's reference it in one of the videos where Atwill talks about it. It's doesn't it start with a V? One of the plays that starts with a V?
Okay, I don't know. I'm not that familiar with Shakespeare's
Claudius or something, or one of the plays.
Vespasian?
Right? No. Titus. There's one called Titus. Isn't there one called Titus?
Titus Andronicus.
Titus Andronicus. Yes, that's where it's found. Titus Andronicus.
Okay, I haven't read that one.
Yeah, well, people don't lend this enough credibility because they think it's hokey. It's not hokey. Because they have a resistance to fully acclimating it into their thought process, especially Christians.
Well, it's a bit complicated, isn't it?
It's not complicated at all. Acclimating it and making sense of it. It's only complicated because people want to make it complicated so they can reject it.
I make it really simple. I'm just
so they can say it's been debunked. It hasn't been debunked. All right. There are clear components and parallels found in Shakespeare and also found in Flavius Josephus's History of the Jews. That is undeniable now. The Gospels were written off of Flavius Josephus's Wars of the Jews in combination with the Hebrew prophets. It's all contrived horseshit, just the same as you say you claim you're a smart person. Maybe you don't want to invest too much time because it's not personal for you. It's very personal for me to study what Rabbi Singer says as far as disproving the Gospels and disproving the New Testaments and finding all the flaws and
No,
faults.
no, okay, I kind of get what he is doing, but the thing is, most Christians are ignorant of their own faith. They haven't read it. They just know they have to say that they believe Jesus is God,
But
and if they don't, they're not Christian, and then they go to hell. But
yeah,
this,
okay,
the easiest way to debunk the whole thing.
that's a very good and easy dismissal, dismissing the Christians by saying that they're ignorant. But at the same time that they're ignorant, they have this a sense of obligation for some reason or another, because the Jews are living amongst them, to spew their shit at the Jews. When they get confused about their own faith and the Jews not believing in Jesus, then they have to, even in their ignorance, they have to confront Jews and try to convince them that Jesus is the legitimate Messiah, and that's the Old Testament is predicting Jesus to arrive in the New Testament. So it has to be answered, these challenges, even of ignorant fucking what have yous. I don't mean
You
to
just
put them
accuse them
down.
of idolatry, and
No,
that's
it's
it.
not
They got to defend
they're
themselves.
wise. They're fucking hucksters and they're wise asses, and they need a wise ass to put them in their place. They're delusional hucksters and wise asses that think they know better. When the bold, honest, in your face truth is there and available, and like you said, it should be a shot in their face with both barrels, and that's what Singer is doing, because we had enough of our people
Well,
murdered and
actually,
raped.
to be honest, I find Singer not that easy to understand, and I think most people would
Because you
not.
don't have a personal vested interest in
Well,
learning
because
the
I haven't
material.
read the New Testament, and or
You
the
don't have
Purge.
to read it. You just have to have a general knowledge of it. Having grown up with Christians and Catholics, do know what they're talking about, and I did do enough of my own kind of study and research into it, because it is a dangerous sort of a ancient instrument of perverting my religion and tempting ignorant Jews of my faith into believing in idolatry, in compromised Judaism that is a mishmash combination, syncretic combination of paganism, idolatry, and Judaism, making arguments for it. And if I'm true to my faith, and I'm not the most righteous person, and I'm not the most observant person, but the one true thing that bothers me, that gets to me, is that trying to rape people's minds and trying to subvert the conscience. That's what Christianity is towards the Jews, regarding 2,000 years of trying to mentally rape and subvert and undermine the Jewish belief and Jews that believe in the one God according to their faith. It's a subversion of conscience, and that is a crime. That's the same crime that's being committed against the masses today. That's where I see the relationship. That's where Atwell sees the relationship. He won't argue for Judaism. I don't intend him. I
Well,
don't
I think
intend.
he finds Buddhism attractive.
Hmm. Fine, but I don't expect him to fall back on the default between Judaism and Christianity, which is the Torah, which is Judaism. Some
I mean,
fair-minded.
there's only two scripture, right? I mean, if you believe the narrative that the Abrahamic God revealed the Torah to Moses and the Quran through Muhammad. I mean, you may not think that the Quran is from God, but they do, and so there are competing narratives, and
Ultimately,
we just have to choose one. And
I
most
have
people are not
uh,
Jews.
just as they are fervent and fanatical about their beliefs. Jews that don't live amongst Westerners anymore and are of an Eastern background, Middle Eastern, Asian background, that realize, that Western European Jews were put in, where they were put in, they were intimidated. There was a chilling effect, and also they were seduced and tempted into keeping their mouths shut by the Christians. That's what happened in the 19th century. You want to get ahead, convert to Christianity or become secular. And also Bruno Bauer made mention of this, that they became bourgeois and they compromised on their beliefs in order to appease the Christians, the hurt feelings, the butthurt feelings of the Christians when Jews don't accept Jesus. So I understand the dynamics of what happened to the Jews of Europe and also America, the Ashkenazi Jews. But religious Jews like Singer, Ashkenazic Jews like Singer, that are committed, that are totally 100% body and soul committed to Torah and Judaism, and they'll lay down their lives for their fellow Jews. It doesn't matter how much risk they put themselves in. And if he was to do this in the medieval times or even during the Renaissance, he would be immediately executed, burned at the stake.
I know.
But listen to me. The fact that he puts himself out there, and I'll put myself out there, not being as authoritative as he is, because he's fully observant 100%, in the right, and he has more of a sort of like a authority, I guess, more respectability. But the one thing I really resent, and I really am so totally against, even for non-Jews, for Gentiles, is the raping of the mind fucking, mind control, brainwashing, subversion of faith and convictions by means of government, deceptions, by means of storytelling, by means of force, by means of intimidation. This is what we have endured. This is
yes,
in my
I
blood.
know, and the Quran is the only scripture that guarantees freedom of belief.
This is in my blood for 2,000 years, and we've survived it. This is why I take it personally.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying, if Jews were just able to say that the Quran is the most no-hide scripture that they can think of.
But it's not. It's not. It has.
Well, what is? What is, apart from the Torah? What is?
No. The fucking Jesus story is in the Quran. It is abhorrent. It is repulsive. It is repugnant. It is vomitous. I want to throw up thinking about it. Even the Islamic version of it. You understand? I will never.
Yeah, well, I don't like it either. But I'm just saying it's the best available. I'm just being practical.
It's the best available? No, the best available is the truth. The best available is God coming down and fucking up everybody's day. That's the best option. That's the best truth, in my opinion. Not compromising, not playing a footsie with Islam, not pushing Islam is the best option to Noahidism. If you want to be a Noahide, be a Noahide. Don't be a Muslim. Islam is haughty. It's arrogant. It wants to suck in Christians by way of giving them a bridge, a sort of like a watered down Christian bridge for their drug, in order for them not to give up on their addiction, and then they get all butthurt.
Yeah, and eventually.
No, but it's still not. It's part of your canon. It's in. There's veneration of Jesus there. There's veneration of Jesus there. To me, it's aberrant. It's so disgusting. Disgusting. When it's a scam of the government.
Yeah, I hate it.
When it's part of the origins and the seeds of the crap that we have to deal with up until today, I won't compromise with it, and I won't push it, and I won't advocate for it. Unless Islam wants to discard their Islamic Jesus and the Mary stories.
Well, it doesn't force you to believe in anything. It just says...
It's not about force. It's just the fact that it's there. The fact that it's there, that it's a temptation. Fuck that shit. I know what it is. I will never promote it. Ever.
Well, nobody's required to promote it. I mean, it's just getting... Christians away from their idolatry.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It sounds nice. I mean, it's good. It's well-meaning, but you have to understand it from my perspective as a Jew, knowing what Jesus is, knowing what Christianity is, knowing what it did to my people for 2,000 years.
I like you sound, because you are prepared to be rude. No.
Jesus. The same applies to Nazism, and the same applies to Bolshevism and everything. Or Christianity, compromising with it. When I was there, I was a lot like the American Jews that I'm criticizing today, like Melanie Kay. Basically, the Christians are nice people. They treat me well. They give me all these opportunities. They're tolerant of me. they want me to listen to their shit about Jesus from time to time. I can accept it. I know what their shtick is, their emotionality and their sentiments and everything. But I couldn't put up with that anymore. I didn't want to compromise with that anymore. And I didn't want to compromise with liberal Jews or whatever, religious conservative Jews, deluding themselves about how they can still get along. And it's only a bump in the road, Melanie. We'll see about that, Melanie. I expect to see you in Israel in the very near future. Who knows how long it'll take? Not too long. And then, I'll give you a warm welcome. Obviously, there won't be any touching because it's going to be the time of Messianic rule. And so we'll be fully Torah observant. I won't be hugging you or kissing you or shaking your hand or anything. But I'll be giving you a very nice, grin from ear to ear. How's that bump work? How did that bump work for you? How did you get over that bump, Melanie? Yeah, it's and I hope you make it. I honestly do. If you're going to be down in Florida, stay close to the Jewish community. Convert your boyfriend for your own sake, because you're going to be separated from him if he doesn't convert soon. It's not going to be pleasant. I highly recommend you do that. I'm transmitting my rabbi's message. Convert him as soon as possible. And the thing about compromising and taking these half measures, and you're openly stating it to the Christians when they have awareness of Singer's work, when they have awareness of Caesar's Messiah, when they're not as dim-witted, when they're not as self-delusional, when they do the coin drops for them and they finally come to the realization that it's all fucking horse shit, it's all crap, no matter how proud they are, no matter how sentimental they are, no matter how much they feel for their history, and how this is the building blocks of Western civilization, and look at the gains and look at all the good, and they're arguing and apologetics and all that. It doesn't matter for the new generations, and even for my generation, they want the truth. All right, so they will never swallow any form of Islam. If they want Noahidism, they can go for Noahidism. Fine. Noahidism is a movement making. Gaining ground and making plenty of gains, and if Islam is in cooperation with Noahidism or falls into the terms that Noahidism tries to promote, if it's what's the word I'm looking for? If it clicks with Noahide teachings, fine. But the majority of Christians will reject any form of Jesus when they fully realize what that fucking thing is. And because there's a Jesus in Islam, they will utterly reject Islam. See, so Islam, from its ancient origins and roots and heritage,
I don't think people are that bothered about Jesus. I think that those who claim to be Christian, they just cling to something that they associate with making the West great. I don't think they have any emotional belief in the thing.
No, wait. No, American Christians are 100% committed to Jesus.
But those are the fundamentalists. But I'm talking about ordinary Americans.
No, Jesus freak fundamentalists are the majority of Trump supporters. All right, and they will never surrender Jesus. And if they surrender Jesus, they will not go to a half measure of an Islamic immortal Jesus that happened to be some prophet in some prophetic.
What would they do then? Assuming
you're asking a very good question, but the answer is there in front of your face. There is a Noahide movement that's building, and it will gain steam.
Yeah, but the Noahide movement, they're going to get beheaded.
By who?
By the laws that require capital punishment for
breaking
the Noahide laws.
No. But so you think, but by way of what's about to happen, when God's rule, God's hand, God's authority, that you don't recognize as being part of what's about to happen, I say it will all be resolved. And true knowledge, universal knowledge, true Hebrew prophets, the Israelite prophets, the Hebrew prophets that claim that state that's what will be the case. It's absolutism. It's God's absolutism. It will be the ultimate theocracy. There won't be any questions. There won't be human interference. There will be full divine knowledge of God. There will be full universal knowledge of God and his existence. Then the Christians won't have any arguments to make. The Muslims won't have any arguments to make. The pagans in the East won't have any arguments to make. Hindus, Buddhists, whatever, Shintoists, whatever. Universal knowledge of God in its absolute form. All problems resolved. All questions answered. All right, so this constant, so this constant back and forth, and these constant half measures, and these constant, enticements, and these constant, proposals of, weaning the Christians off of their idolatry by way of Islam, which might have been the original purpose of Islam, whether wittingly or not, whether Muhammad and his team were fully aware of God's purpose for them, of watering, it's like weaning the Western world off of idolatry slowly, or weaning the rest of the world off of pagan idolatry. But for them, it was barbaric, forced violence that the Jews were incapable of, even though they were commanded. They were too small a group to do that. They couldn't take on the world physically, violently. It was all about concepts and ideas and setting an example. But the Muslims took the baton of violent jihad and violent overthrow of idolatry, and violent resistance to Jesus as a deity, or a partner, or an equal to the Creator. So that's what God intended for Islam. That's what. But the mistake that they made, but it could have been also part of the whole plan. The mistake that they made is they included a Jesus in there as an enticement, to like a peaceful enticement, sort of like a mercy to the Christians once they had defeated them, or Christians that became disillusioned with their idolatry, to choose to opt out by way of the Islamic Jesus as a prophet. It's just a political ploy. All right. So a spiritual, political ploy, religious ploy, what have you. That being understood and identified for what it is, you cannot I told you this before, you cannot underestimate today's Christians, whether European or American. They're not as ignorant as we take them for. They do make sense of this, and they do realize that I won't exchange my the horse shit that I was born into for some compromised, watered down horse shit that tries to wean me off of Jesus in the form of a prophet, Islamic Jesus. I won't accept that either. That's what you find amongst the Noachites. You ask the majority of the Noachites if they would accept Islam versus Christianity.
Yeah, they're only Noachites because they're Islamophobes. Otherwise, they choose.
No, not at all. It's not just Islamophobia. They're fully aware of what I just stated, the argument I just made. We shouldn't underestimate their intelligence. We should not, insult their intelligence. They're fully aware of the tool and the instrument of the Islamic Jesus and what it was intended for. And that's why it's not Islamophobia. It's a rejection of Islam and what it intended to do way back in the 7th century. It's on an intellectual basis and not on a basis of phobia and fear. They said
Islam has scripture. Noachites don't have. Other than
the former Christians, or the Christians that are sitting on the fence, that are undecided, once they realize that there is an Islamic Jesus, they want to vomit. And they realize, and they immediately say, I will never, ever accept Islam, by virtue of there being an Islamic Jesus. And it's not something that can be overlooked. It's not something.
Well, they want Jesus excised out of existence.
Yes, that's what Rabbi Singer even recommended to Muslims to do, for Islam to do, if it wants to be a truly monotheistic faith and not compromise with idolatry. The whole story.
But Muslims don't regard any other prophets as divine.
The entire story is fucking manure. It's political propaganda. I know. It's fucking war psychology. It's an insult to Jews, and it's an insult
to anybody's intelligence.
No, it's an insult to anybody, but it's in Islam. There's a version of it in Islam. It's an insult. It's imperfect. They want to call the Injil, polluted, or what is it called? How do they go about saying it?
Corrupted.
It's corrupted. The Torah is corrupted. The Injil, the New Testament is corrupted. The fucking Quran is 100% corrupted for having a fucking any form of Jesus in it. It's absolutely corrupted. No sane Jew and no sane Christian in his right mind would replace the crap of Jesus found in the New Testament for the crap of Jesus you find in the Quran. No, nobody.
Well, I think
it's not that easy.
Maybe fewer people hate Jesus.
It's not maybe this and maybe that. They're intelligent people. They understood how they got fucked and mind screwed by the Jesus story, the Christian version. They won't accept any watered down, moderated version of it.
It's not the pillar of Islam. They're not,
Yes, it is. He's a venerated. But he is. He's a venerated.
The important thing is the Sharia. The important thing is the Sharia.
According to what Singer said, is a Razul. He's like a saint. Okay? And so the thing is, there's no compromising with it. Whether he's venerated, not venerated, a pillar of Islam or not a pillar. A lot of Muslims get insulted by the Caesar's Messiah thesis. It hurts.
It hurts their feelings too, because they've been venerating a non-existent supposedly dead Jew on a stick.
No, so you want to pick and choose the good aspects of Islam as a solution and a response to the decay of Western civilization. That's why you call it secular Quranism. That's why you want to take away the theological, dogmas out of Islam and infuse it with secular values.
I'm more interested in the legislation that will be derived of Quranic principles than the stories.
Disassociated from Islam and the Quran at all, 100%, and present them as logical, rational solutions based on proven historical experiences, without associating it with Islam. Because you want to appeal to the Muslims, right? You want the Muslims to support it, and you want the Christians to. It's a middle ground. It's like a secular Islamic Jesus. I
don't even want to talk about any of the stories. I'm only interested in the rules. I don't care about the narratives. I really don't want to argue about any of it. You believe in it if you want. You reject it if you want. But that's going to be the law, which will support marriage and family values, and give condign punishment to where it is deserved.
Base it on rational logic and
that's what I'm doing.
But you call it Quranism. It's
because it's based on the Quran. I mean, there's no point in me saying, it's all my little idea.
But sometimes we talk about Islam as being the religion of the default position for Christians to fall back on as a religion to convert into. You constantly repeat that as
if you want to believe in God, go ahead, because this is
why by way of Islam? Why by way of Islam when you have other options that you could still you could be a deist like the founding fathers and not be a Christian. You can be a Noahide.
But I really focus on the legislation.
The distaste that people find in your proposals is that you still sentimentalize Islam and Muhammad and the religion by calling.
I never talk about it. I mean, it's like, you believe it if you want, but these laws, you can tell that these laws would solve these social problems that you already have. That's all. What I sell it as a political manifesto, not a belief system.
Oh, good. But you have to consider, making it more acceptable, and you could make it more tasteful for Christians that fall away from Christianity to adopt a more rational and logical forms of
just by showing them how Christianity has failed, because it's fundamentally unbelievable. They can't believe in it, and once they stop believing in it, they become corrupt and ignore all the rules, and then they let liberalism take over, and liberalism also has a life of its own, because
after repeating it often enough and knowledge through repetition and learning through repetition, it applies, and eventually they get it. but just by virtue of you associating your political manifesto with Islam in any way, shape, or form, it turns them off. It's not just because of Islamophobia, because once they realize and they're intellectual enough, and they're not the common rabble. I told you, Islam adopted forms of Christianity into it, venerating Jesus and Mary. There are whole chapters. There's a whole chapters in the Quran dedicated to Mary and Jesus, and that is the most that's what puts them off. That's the most distasteful for them. If they'll adopt the laws that you're suggesting,
but they don't have to adopt it. You can pick and choose the verses that you want to believe in or not believe in. But in the meantime, the country has these laws.
No. They see the not just the holy wars and the jihads and the crusades as an obstacle. They see that it's a political machination, that it's not of God. All right, even though it means well, even though it wants to create balance in society amongst the sexes and in families and in politics and in business, they will go about.
If the Messiah doesn't arrive, that's all we have.
No, it's not. Well, no, it's not. They have the option of Noahidism, and they have.
Yeah, but Noahidism has no scripture. That's what I'm trying to say. It has no scripture for Gentiles.
But for them, it's like choosing a flavor, and the Islamic flavor is a repugnant to them.
I know most Westerners are Islamophobes anyway.
It's just the taste of Islam is repugnant to them. They don't like
it. I know. They've been indoctrinated to hate it and regard Muslims as inferior people who've been conquered by the West. I know, and of course, they would feel hurt at the idea.
Flavor. I can reduce it to its simplest form. It's not about adopting the religion of the conquered peoples, the inferior peoples. It's just like some people hate the flavor of Indian curry. Or some people hate the flavor of Indian spices or Far Eastern spices. The Westerners just detest it. They can't swallow it. It's the same thing with the Quran. You have to flavor it to be Western flavored. And if you want to flavor it to be Western flavored, you have to take the word Quran out of it completely. Retitle your proposal, your political manifesto.
You're not the first person who said that to me, but it's too late now, because even if I did that, people will say, we know where you got those ideas from.
The word itself and the idea creates a flavor in the mouths of Westerners that's detestable. That is,
I know, and that's what they have to swallow. And currently they're not up to it. Okay, they can choose Noahidism and be rabbinically guided and have these rabbis make up these rules as they go along, because there is no scripture in Noahidism.
That's the track. That's the mode, and that's the track of thinking that you are down, and you're assuming, and you're kind of coming to this conclusion. You're making these deductions based on your foresight or ability, or your vision of the future. It's totally in contradiction to my vision of the future.
Yeah, because you expect the Messiah to be arriving.
What you're proposing to me and to others is not good. For me, it's not clicking. For me, because I know for a fact that the Jews won't be there anymore to be rabbinical leaders or Noahide leaders or community leaders for Noahides, guiding them and directing them. They'll be, I told you, full universal knowledge of God. Things will change utterly on its head. That you can have a hard time swallowing, just the same as I have a hard time swallowing the word Koranism as a solution. What my rabbi said is Islam will spread. Yeah, Muslims will spread, and they'll have more influence, and they'll choke the Christian world. They'll choke the white world, and they'll sort of force balance, but not by making whitey a Muslim. And the Muslims themselves, at the end of the day, this is part of the means by which God will push the Jews out of Western lands because it's becoming less white. It's not dominated by Christians or whitey or white people. And that was the refuge that Jews had in America and parts of Europe. That's what they relied on. That was the sort of like the crutch or sort of the life raft, or the what do you call them? They had like a buoy or whatever that was this is what they held on to in the diaspora. Whitey and the Christians being nice to them and giving them a refuge, giving them a sort of like a nest and an ability to have a home away from home, and tolerating them, and from time to time having these religious missionary movements trying to slowly missionize them, convert them to Christianity, Jews for Jesus, all the half measures that they take, or not half measures, insipid, deceptive trickery and enticement, and that's what I'm fighting against. That's what Singer's fighting against. We don't want that anymore. The Jews that lived in the West allow themselves to be exposed to that, allow themselves to be vulnerable to that, and they keep their mouths shut about that. MLK won't talk about it. Zelenko, when challenged by Alex Jones, said, it doesn't matter who the Messiah is. It could be the first, second, third, fourth coming. That's a means of calming the insecurities of the Christians, or the questions and the challenges and the pride and the ego that they have racing the spinning wheels in their head in regards to the Jews, because the Jews are a pivotal part of a messianic revelation according to the New Testament and their revelations. Why? Because it's a political tool of mind fucking and molesting the Jews' minds and their consciousness. It's a subversion of conscience. They don't see it that way. I see it that way. 2,000 years of it, and Zelenko didn't have the nerve to tell Alex to his face that that's what it is. He had to make a political diplomatic compromise with him. So did Melanie. She has to make these because that's her base, and that's who she has to work with. That's the camp that's working against all the sickos, all the Satanists, all the homo globo, all the LGBTQ, all the fucks, all the degenerates that are the zombies that are multiplying. So she's out of desperation keeps her mouth shut, doesn't speak out as she should. But Rabbi Singer speaks out as he should. I speak out as I should. If it alienates the Christians, if it turns off the Christians, I could give two shits. The Jews need to be in Israel now. So your vision of the future is totally not my vision of the future.
I know.
So what you see as far as a solution, I can't get on board with it. I can't really be a contributor.
No, but because you're not really concerned, because you're already in Israel, and you see your mission as getting Jews into Israel, and whatever the Gentiles do, you don't really care about. I get it.
No, I do care about them not fucking with us anymore.
Well, they won't if you're all in Israel. But assuming you have to acknowledge the possibility that the Messiah won't arrive.
No,
I mean, there has to be a plan B.
No. This is a conviction now. The Gentiles don't understand this. A lot of Israelis.
Okay, I have to accept me. I have to accept that. Well, people are not going to accept secular Quranism, and it won't be adopted. Or if it is, it won't be adopted in my lifetime. I have to accept that.
Yeah, I'm fully confident and aware of my position not being a popular position amongst Gentiles. They'll prefer to, again, interpret it as the second coming of Jesus. Because of my conviction, my fervor, my passion, I'll go, well, it's a misguided Jew. He doesn't understand his own prophets, and he doesn't understand the New Testament telling of Jesus and the complete truth and the revelations and Jesus being the fulfillment of the New Testament, the Old Testament prophets. Jesus is the fulfillment. Fucking morons. So they'll say, well, maybe he has it half right. Maybe his fervent messianic, anticipation is somewhat in the right place, but he just doesn't understand the correct interpretation that it's the second coming of Christ, according to the retelling of the prophets, according to the New Testament authors and the Revelations. Vomit, hurl, fucking disgusting, fucking insulting. Fucking ridiculous, aberrant, repulsive. I'm sorry, I'm throwing it in your face. But all the difficulty you have with realizing where we are, as much as I try to convince you, you're still down this track of proposing what you want to propose, your manifesto, your political manifesto. When to them, I tell you, you have to package it and you have to market it differently. A majority of Christians find the
Yes, I
taste.
already know they are Islamophobes, but I'm not going to compromise on saying, oh, it's all my little idea. Do you think it would have greater authority if I say all these little laws that I have in mind for you? It's just little me. I thought them. There's just no way around it.
No. The foundation that you're using, the foundation and the authority that you're using appeals more to Muslims and even to Jews. Jews like myself that are not living in the West, or Israel is still considered Western, but it's a unique place. It's not either Eastern or Western. It's its own thing. Although the European Ashkenazi Jews would prefer to be, as secular ones would prefer it to be fully holy Western, because that's where, again, they find their refuge. That's where they cling to their safety, and all of that is going to be taken away.
They want it to be the Paris of the Middle East.
Yeah, but that's what it's being taken away from them. Guess what? It's being taken away from them. But Islam won't step in as the solution or as the replacement. They would like to think they are, and it seems to be sent, logical as the logical conclusion according to pragmatic politics and pragmatic, geopolitics and realpolitik. It's just not going to be the case. Let them continue imagining and fantasizing and assuming that that's going to be the case. It's not. Just the same as what you're trying to do is not going to be the case. If you want to use the authority of Islam, it's only going to appeal to Muslims. The Christians will find it utterly repulsive, and they are.
Yeah, but there are hardly any Christians. I'm sorry, in Britain, the birthplace of Anglicanism. Well, I don't think even the people who are confirmed Christians are really believe that Jesus is God. They only do it because, it's the religion of their ancestors. They can see that everything is crashing and burning, and they can see it's because, they don't support marriage and liberalism.
They have firsthand experience. Wait. They have firsthand experience with Muslims, both in their country and both in all of the campaigns and adventurism of the British and the Americans in the Middle East. They have firsthand experience with Muslim Arabs, and they find them to be repulsive. Everything.
I know they loathe Muslims, but some of them are converting to Islam because they know because it's okay. Some people need to believe in God, and they need to feel protected by having a religion. And if Christianity has failed, and they still need to believe in God, off they go to Islam.
You can keep on hurling all of these insults at them, and they deserve these insults. It's getting even with them. For all of their pompous arrogance and imperialism, fine. It's just like a sense of venting and getting even with them. But at the same time, you're not appealing to them. You're not enticing them.
I'm afraid. I mean, I cannot compromise on. There's no point me lying about, the origins of secular Quranism. And if I said it's all my idea, they'll just say you're just a mortal and fallible woman. Why should we listen to you? Why don't we listen to Marx or
mortal is the word you're using. A secular is associated with mortal. It's not divine.
Yes, and I'm saying you as a mortal can see that these rules, these laws address particular evils that your society is suffering from, and you need a whole package of these laws to correct yourself. And I can explain why, why all these laws, how they would, but okay, if they have a problem with the Quran, well then I guess it won't work, and it's just too bad.
It's just not going to work. It's absolutely
not because of the Islamophobia, and Islamophobia has a price, and they will be humbled. They will be humbled by the crap that they have been ingested all these centuries.
All right, but it's just whining and complaining at this point. You can drive this point home at them a million times over. You're Islamophobic. I have good suggestions. It makes sense. But
I mean, that's all I'm left with. And you're saying Messiah's coming, and but that is essentially our positions, our different positions.
Well, you have the Christian revivalists like Peterson, and you have the authority of a big.
They can be easily debunked because it's like, yeah, revive Christianity and
What I
revive
think,
the practice of
what I think,
heretic burning.
what
Why
I
don't
think,
you?
what I think a force to be reckoned with is a nuclear armed Russia that is Christian revivalist, Orthodox Christian revivalist.
The Russians are pretty fucked in the head too. I mean, they're probably more fucked in the head than the West themselves. They just happen at the moment to enjoy having a good leader. But what's going to happen afterwards? We don't know. I mean, they had communism. That communism has collapsed, and now they're divided between Atlanticism and
we saw what the Slavs are capable of in war on both sides. They can be very brutal, very heartless, very inhumane, very cruel, very just like cold in their ability to maim and torture and murder one another. All right, I'd say they're more brutal in war than the Westerners. Even then, they will. In my opinion, the Slavs are far more capable of cruelty and murder
Yeah,
on a level that is medieval horror, Dracula level, or Vlad Tepes, the Impaler, Vlad the Impaler. That's what you find in.
yeah. I mean, the Russian soldier was routinely brutalized to toughen him up.
Yeah, but that's how the Slavs, even in their interfighting, in their infighting, in their civil wars, like what you have in Ukraine now, exhibit the same kind of early 20th century brutality and cruelty that was so horrific. And even Jews that were in there, or intermarried with the Slavs, they became Slavic Jews, whatever. It can recount the brutality and cruelty of the Slavs towards one another and towards them, towards the Jews. For now, the Christian revival coming out of Russia is appealing because the West is so satanic. The West is so self-destructive and degenerate. It's out of desperation. Again, it's the Jews clinging to the American Christians, and the Jews clinging to some sort of, Putin or Russia Christian revival, just to get away from this sickness called intersectionality or liberalism run amok, and the Satanism of the West, and the hypocrisy and two-faced nature of the West. Just their decay, the fall of empire. But again, I mean, out of desperation, you come up with this concept, and you have your manifesto, and the solutions are very, sensible and appealing as far as regaining balance and trying to mitigate all the, continued degeneration of the West. But again, you will only appeal to Muslims. You'll only appeal to Muslims. No, and the majority of the people that are lending you.
I will appeal only to Muslims and people who want to believe in God. And when things get worse, more people will want to believe in God, and more people will be prepared to accept the narrative of why Christianity was always meant to fail because of its absurdity. If you just want the atheist explanation, and if you want the divine explanation, it is because it's idolatry and cursed by God, who has sent a better revelation to humanity, which is the Quran. It's simple.
But then you're contradicting yourself. Then it's religious dogma, and it's not secular. It's religious. It's Islamic religious dogma. You're blending.
It's not dogma, because it's a narrative. You choose to believe in it if you want, but if you don't, you have the rational reasons about what these laws are.
By just stating what you stated, you're trying to kind of like sneak it under the radar.
I don't. I always have both two explanations. I have the atheist explanation of an event or phenomenon, and I have the divine explanation. So
but it's muddying the waters.
It's ways.
It's what the Christians have done for centuries in order to perpetuate their lies. They muddy the waters and they slip their way into the next phase of history by through these maneuvers. This is what they're infamous
Yeah,
for.
and they have to be called out, and Jews have to help Muslims in calling out the idolatry of, because it's you people who are supposed to be triggered by
No,
idolatry, not be
no, I
practicing
won't.
and
No,
collaborating with it.
but I won't support what you just stated as far as the Quran being a divine sort of substitute for Christianity. Hell
It's a
no.
book of rules. Well, okay. Well,
No, it's
do
a
you
book.
want them to use a
No,
Torah?
no, it's not. It's a book of dogmas. It's a book of beliefs. You have to believe in the Muslim Jesus. Hell
No,
no.
no, 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 no. If you believe, or if you want to believe it, you believe in it. But there's chapter 2, verse 256, which I say is the basis of the First Amendment. Nobody's going to force you to believe in anything, but you will have to obey the new laws.
Really, look, laws that dictate morality are necessary in America and in the West. Absolutely, with that I agree. Giving it an Islamic flavor, a Quranic flavor, is totally abhorrent to both Christians and Jews. All right,
I know, I know. I understand. There's a
because
lot of pride involved, you know.
it's not only the pride; it's because of the history of Islam being the history of Islam being very totalitarian, and authoritarian, and violent and vicious. Absolutely, that's the taste, the flavor we have
Yes,
left in our mouth.
and Muslims suffer when they don't follow the principles of the so this happens to Christians who don't really are a bit vague about what Christian principles are, and lots of Jews don't completely follow the Torah, and I guess Muslims suffer from the same
Anything,
sins of omission.
no, anything with the foundation and backdrop of the Quran and Islam for Jews and for Jews and Christians is
Yeah,
distasteful,
because you
aberrant.
regard yourselves as the senior branches of the Abrahamic religions. So
No, it's fine.
you're not going to be
No,
saying, oh, we don't have the better scripture. It's those Muslims, they have the better scripture.
the moral rules and the religious rules, as far as when it comes to especially sexual tendencies, behaviors. The thing that Vincent Bruno is so against, because he's a self-proclaimed idolater, blasphemer, and butt fucker, sodomite, homo. So for him, I understand his resistance and his a sort of like his combative attitude, and his attempts to be
Yeah,
sly.
he would feel that his lifestyle choice was being threatened.
That's
It would,
absolutely. But
yeah.
going back to the point about Jews and Muslims, Jews and Christians not being able to adopt anything based on Islam because of the distaste of the history of what Islam did to both Jews and Christians. And it's a back and forth brutalizing. The Christians brutalize the Jews and the Muslims brutalize the Christians, the Muslims from time to time also brutalize the Jews, and now we have this political conflict. It's in no way possible, unless you're going to lobotomize.
Well, I would suggest that it's time to
you're gonna have to
cooperate
lobotomize.
together to defeat intersectionality if you care about the future of your
Look,
civilization.
the West is partially lobotomized as it is. All right. If you want them to adopt your manifesto in its sort of engineered way, in its sort of compromising way, they would have to be fully lobotomized. And so would the Jews. They would have to be fully lobotomized. You have to restructure your everything, and it's not going to be in your name. It's going to be inspired by the Quran, inspired by Islam, but having nothing to do with Islam, and no mention of
There's
Islam.
already a White House Quran.
No,
And
and
it belonged to Thomas Jefferson.
no mention of Quran in it either. Make it
Well,
Western. Give it a flavor. Wait. You like gelati? You like Italian gelato?
Sure, I like ice cream.
All right. So instead of making it the flavor of a sort of like let's say a good like a halva, or Middle Eastern pistachio flavor, which is like it's too Oriental, too Middle Eastern. Some people, a lot of Westerners might not like it. Make it vanilla and some other Western watered down mild flavor. This is what you're trying to do by calling it secular. But the minute you add Quranism, you're turning them off. But the minute you're saying it's based on Islam and the Quran, you're totally turning them off. Even if your arguments are convincing and rational, it's just that it's simple. Whether they fall away and become more and more degenerate, more and more depraved, more and more hopeless and helpless, they will just not swallow the Arabian, Islamic, Middle Eastern flavor of Islam. They just will reject it because of their experiences, because of the history, because of the brutalization of ancient warfare. All of that stays, whether they're fully lobotomized. They would have to be like in the Matrix, fully lobotomized. Their minds would have to be utterly swept clean, a clean plate, in order for you to insert the program of secular Quranism into their brains.
I accept that a lot of them will just say we'd rather die. Let our civilization die because we hate it so much and we know there's no better alternative, but we don't care. We would rather die. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Yes, I get it. In fact, they've been saying that to me for years.
Take all the Muslims living amongst them with them. You think they're going to let
I guess it's just too bad, but I mean that's a solution, and I would have thought that somebody might have come up and adapted these ideas, but they haven't. None of them have. All these figures.
They don't have for their own children. They don't have this a self-preservation or concern or care or protective.
Most of them don't have children.
Yeah, or the ones that do are not willing to speak out and protect their children from the
because they're nihilists and atheists who don't care about posterity. Even if they have children, they don't care.
Okay, but you do have fundamentalist Muslims that are resisting in England. Okay, and that's
the fundamentalist Muslims want their own version of it. They want their own version of it, which is not my version.
Look, the white nationalists that are still somewhat, they want to cling to some normalcy. They want to cling to heterosexuality and marriage and heterosexual couples, and they're about men and women, and they don't want to surrender that, and they're against the LGBTQ plus P plus B plus X plus Y. And they can find at least a common cause with fundamentalist Muslims against indoctrinating children in schools. That's where they find common ground with them, and they can work together on that without having to adopt each other's religions or each other's religious doctrines or dogmas. And the same goes here with the fucking fags here. Sorry, is this on YouTube?
Yes, it is, but
strike that. Okay, you'll have to strike that. I meant cigarettes, like the English fag.
Yes. Thank you, Sam.
I meant cigarettes.
But terrible for your health.
They're terrible for your health.
Sticks.
English cigarettes, not good. So in Israel, we find common ground here with Muslims against the gay pride parades. The religious Jews and Islamic Arabs here, Muslim Arabs, are totally against the desecration of the holy city of Jerusalem by homosexuals, and so they force them to tone down their gay pride parades and have them in the secular part of the city, away from the holy sites, as far away as possible from the holy sites in Jerusalem. And that's the compromise that was struck. But they keep on pushing. I'm sure if they could, they would have their gay parade right on Temple Mount, inside the Al-Aqsa Mosque, or inside.
Exactly, and so you need a system of rules to push back all this stuff. Because you were talking about Christianity yesterday taking a life of its own. Liberalism has a life of its own. What liberalism is about is like, liberty is great. Let's have more of it. And they can only think of sexual liberation, which is, of course, dysgenic and self-destructive. And now they can't bring themselves to admit that they're wrong.
No, but it's more than that. No, but it's far more than that. There's an insidious conspiracy that has been hatched, that is actually activated. It's not about sexual liberation for the just for the LGBTQ freaks. It's about stopping heterosexual couples from procreating. that is the ultimate agenda. It's making it impossible for straight couples to have children.
Yes,
By
it's
means,
the death drive, isn't it? Society is in the death drive. I mean, we've also heard
but
this.
this was engineered, and this was premeditated, and it's a policy of the elites. It's
Well,
stated policy.
it happened to the Romans too. They okay. Once they became decadent, their birth rate also declined.
Right, and
And
they
we've
also
heard this expression, demographics is destiny. So once you're in this death drive of, well, what's the point of having children? Your society goes down unless there is a correction. It's possible that they refuse to accept correction, and their
they refuse.
civilization
All
will
right,
die.
I'll tell you that at least foes on ethnic grounds, religious grounds, on the Western versus Middle Eastern values being in conflict with one another. Yeah, even the ones that realize that the West is in decline will not adopt religious dogmas and authoritarianism. The common ground is the the what's called the self-sacrifice for your children. The Muslims still have this innate, if they're normal and they're balanced, and they're still you know you know
Yeah, they'll turn up outside schools and are teaching their
yeah.
children transgenderism.
Yeah,
Yes.
if they still have a sense of self-preservation, or self-sacrifice for their children, they will put themselves out there. And so you have some amongst the British white, not if you call them white nationalists, or just the ones that are a isolationists or protection. They want to be protective of their identity and their culture, and
Hmm.
all good. At least if they just revive their self-preservation instincts and impulses, and found common ground with British Muslims, or even British Hindus. British Hindus are very conservative and concerned about their
But
schools, the children.
yes, but they are now in such a state that they don't even want to marry. Because if once you have too much sex and have too many sex partners, the idea of being stuck to one partner is well, a terrible prospect. And that's why they can't do it.
I'm saying, just as a gesture, whatever remnant of normal white Christian British English people there are, just find common ground in resisting the LGBTQ plus pedophile agenda. They can set aside their dislike of the brown people, and the Indians and the Arabs and the Islamics, what have you, and they are right for protesting. They're being overrun daily by hundreds of thousands of immigrants. No country that is a sovereign country can withstand that, or should withstand that.
Hmm.
It is a conquest. It is a sort of and it ultimately
Immigration is invasion.
it's invasion. Immigration is invasion, and that's also a means of, like, if you have non-white British English citizens being in support of stopping the invasion, you're also going to win over a white British citizens that feel that they've been exploited, and their kindness.
There aren't any anti-immigration parties to vote for. Even if it's like even if Jews who object to immigration, I mean, who can they vote for? I mean, there's the BNP who are known for their
It's the
anti-Semitism
same
and
situation
Islamophobia,
around the
and
world.
UKIP.
It's the same
It's
situation
the
around the
whole
world.
system is wrong.
Yeah.
It
The
can't.
politicians, they suck ass. They suck ass in England. They suck ass in all of Europe, Germany, France. They suck ass in Israel. They suck ass in America and Canada. They all suck ass. It's a phenomenon. It's a global, worldwide phenomenon. Now, I don't have to get into it. I'm just saying, on the ground level, populist, personal level, as far as having common goals and common interests.
They can't even
Muslims.
think straight, Sam. They can't even think straight. I mean that
Well,
they can't.
well, if you've got a lobotomized white population in England, that's maybe the opportunity for you to insert the secular Quranism in there, to the ones that are so jaded and dazed that they don't know where they are. Maybe they'll, this makes
Yeah,
sense.
and the reaction is hatred and saying they'd rather die.
But I'm
I
just
mean,
saying,
you
you
know,
can't do that to. I mean, you have to get them out of their fucking daze. If they're lobotomized, you have to get them somewhat.
listen, Sam, they're mostly unmarriageable bachelors. They have no biological investment in the next generation, and the most that they hope for is that they die before the shit hits the fan, before the
That's the
correction.
that's the
That's
dark.
what they hope for.
Yeah, well, that's the darkest and most bleak sort of interpretation,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and
yeah,
and, and
yeah, absolutely.
that's the comprehension you have of them because you resent them. I know you resent them on a personal level, and so it's like I understand that.
I
Uh,
understand how they think because I've spoken to them so much over the years, and really, okay, they won't say it in those words. They just pretend not to understand and repeat their hatred and whatever. And, you know, but
but
that's
you know
it.
what?
You
You
know,
know what it stems from? It stems from the collapse of the economic edifice. That's why it's not just the social engineering. It's not just the elites, the satanic elites, driving a wedge between men and women of all races and religions because they don't want population growth, and that's how you get these types of men. Whether they're white or whether they're Islamic, I'm sure there are some British Muslims that men that are being drawn.
who don't want to marry because the divorce laws, well, are, you know, pretty
Well,
vicious on the wealthier partner.
same applies to Arab Muslim men or Islamic men in England, Pakistanis or what have you. They live in that environment. They live in that atmosphere. They lived in that. They live in that the air of that culture. And whether they want to be hold on to their conservative values or Islamic or what have you, ancient world what kind of principles and values, they can't because they live amongst the ruling classes of
They
the
live in
West.
Sodom and Gomorrah.
They live in the West, and the ruling classes there have it in for the population. They want to basically marginalize the middle class and make it impoverished, and they want to make it gay. They want to make it as bent and twisted and incapable of normal procreation as possible. It's Satanism, it's Luciferianism, and so the Muslims living there, as much as their Muslim pride tells them, well, we'll dominate because these people are so weak and they're so jaded and they're so lobotomized. They're looking at the public, they're looking at the middle classes that are the victims. They are the subject of the ruling classes, and they think that they will take over, they will dominate because those motherfuckers are such pushovers. But guess what, you
The
fucking
children
idiot?
will become like that. They will be global homogenized.
Yeah, the Islamic men and women will be the same way. Look, I'm telling you, I don't want to. I said I wouldn't mention this again, but this Muslim girl from Jordan, she's a sexual freak. She's about just pure sex. That's all, and she has an outer appearance of being a religious Islamic, adherent. But she's, anal sex. She's talking to me about. She's talking to me about like really dirty shit that like freaky, sort of like what do you call it? A kinky, really kinky shit that she's into. And so this is a religious Islamic woman with the look of your avatar right there, And so I'm telling you that they're spoiled. They're getting ruined. They're getting ruined. So all your Islamic hopes and sort of like a future aspirations about taking over, it's not the case. You're being taken over just by living there amongst them. Your
Well, we
people.
can't all come to Israel. I can't join you in Israel, can I, Sam?
No. Israel's not meant for you. Israel's meant for
Exactly.
But
So we have to sort our problems out in our Gentile countries.
yeah. Well, I'm telling
And,
you, the
and I
Muslims,
have a solution, and you're saying it's not necessary because the Messiah is coming.
but I'm telling you that Islamic men and women in Western countries get spoiled and they get corrupted, and they can have an Islamic exterior, but in the privacy of their
They're watching porn like everyone else, yes.
yeah, not just watching porn, they're indulging in kinky pornographic sex. This girl, she wants me to fuck her in the ass. It's like I don't fuck girls in the ass. I sort of like have
You're a
an aversion.
gentleman. Not on the first date, anyway, huh?
I haven't. No, I have never. I just have an aversion to sodomy. I don't want to put it in the bunghole. I don't do it.
Yeah,
I just it's despicable. It's disgusting to me. It's just the
yeah.
same as it's an aversion that when homos stick it in each other's bungholes. I won't stick it in a woman's bunghole.
It's sad. It's sad.
That's where you know
It's sad
that's
to
where
talk like that before you've even actually, if you want to do the sort of thing, maybe you do it a few years later after you're
never, no,
I
never,
don't know, something like
not
that.
with
But
any
not
of
on the
my,
first date.
no, never, not even on the first date. Not with any it's of my girlfriends, not my wife, not anybody. I will. It's so abhorrent, and it's like, to me, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
If I see porn stars doing it, it's like it doesn't turn me on.
Yeah, it's
It's
horrible.
disgusting. It's disgusting. It's in Islam, it should be considered a prohibition, even if you do it to a woman. It's not just gay sex and sticking it in the excrement hole where you take a dump. It's disgusting. It's filthy. It spreads diseases. It's
Mm.
it's just, and this is what this Islamic woman is into, and she shows it to
Uh,
me. That's what she's into.
oh, oh. Yes, I get it. Sounds like you're a bit off her now. I mean, people say too much. I think too much information
Oh,
before you.
she sent me videos of her, masturbating in up her bunghole with a dildo.
Oh, oh, I guess she.
That's what's happening to Muslims in Europe.
That's sad. That's sad. That's just total lack of inhibition.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so
But
you have a real, a hill to climb. What's the expression? You have a real mountain to climb here, because even the Islamic demographic of the population there is becoming rotten, thanks to the Western values.
well, ultimately, it's up for anyone in the ruling classes to decide whether, or people outside it to, do what is necessary. If they're not prepared to do it, then I guess it really is over. And we're just left with hoping the Messiah will come. But I'm just saying, what if he doesn't? Here is a solution. If they don't want it, well, I guess that's the end.
Yeah. Well, I won't be so bleak about it. You can take a bleak approach to it. You can come to that conclusion. I'm not. Again, I feel sorry for you if that's your outlook, and I understand your lack of full perception and belief in the Jewish esoteric eschatology on how the Messiah comes about and is revealed. We will find out soon enough. I'm not too despondent. I'm not bleak about it. For me, I have verification. I have enough proof of it. So the time for waiting, it's God's timing, but we're upon it. And the big part of it is the global financial collapse, the decay, the social decay that we're witnessing now. The fact that what I just described to you is happening to religious conservative Islamic men and women as well, or Jewish. I mean, Jewish men and women in the West have been corrupted for generations in the same way. Even Melanie Kay, she could be a conservative. She took a non-Jewish man because Jewish men and women in the West can't get along. They hate each other. They can't stand each other. It's also a part of the Christian agenda of intermarrying them and slowly diluting them. Even Muslims have this agenda in Israel. They want to dilute the Jewish population and intermarry with them. Give them
Gender relations, Sam. Basically you fuck up gender relations, and these people just can't bear the thought of marrying each other and having children together. And if demographics is destiny, you fucked up, that civilization, that society, that tribe, that nation. And in theory, it's very easy to correct. You shame sluts, you shame slut fuckers, you treat unmarried parents as sex offenders, you tell them that sort of thing is over.
I'll be very specific about Judaism. The outlook for Judaism and the Jewish demographic, both in the West and in Israel, even here, it's gotten to be a phenomenon. It's just as bleak as what you're, talking about as far as the near future. The Christian world and the Islamic world see the Muslim, the Jews, as being self-destructive, as destroying themselves. Secular Jews intermarry, they become gay, a lot of them, and there's no future for them. The future is very bleak for them, and they're not bringing children into the world. And the prospectus is that in 10, 20 years, if there is no messianic revelation, is that the only Jews that will remain are the Orthodox and the ultra-Orthodox, and that's what Rabbi Mizrahi had proposed, and that's what his bleak outlook for secular Jews or traditionalist Jews that are in the same what you said, Western, the sphere of Western influence, or the control of the Western elites, the ruling classes, thrusting these values upon us and engineering us in this way. And if we subject ourselves to them, this is our fate. This is what will be. So this is why we have to have messianic revelation. When Messiah has come as a savior, it is to save us from ourselves and to save us from the Satanists. The Jews will have a long and prosperous future, a future of not just prosperity, of also a lot of offspring, a lot of what's the word? A good word to use for procreation. Descendants, or if being fruitful. The Jews will be very fruitful once we have messianic. There won't be issues of divorce, of gays, of sicknesses, emotional, psychological illnesses. It will be the dictates of God through the Messiah. That's why all of this had to come about. All this is, I could send you a video with English translations and captions saying that we would reach the 50th level of spiritual pollution that the Israelites in Egypt did not enter. We've entered it. But on the other side of it is the 50th level of purity and God's salvation and revelation. It's a measure for measure. We come into the gate of hell, the lowest gate of hell, the lowest gate of impurity. What has to be done is done. Those that have to be done away with get done away with. And on the other side of it is full salvation and redemption and messianic rule. That's what is expected. So all this harshness and all this bleakness, I can understand it. The thing is, I'm optimistic because of it, not not in spite of it, but because of it. Seeing it as a sign of what's to come. All right, maybe you have a hard time seeing it. You want to think on a rational, logical basis. You're amongst people that are also non-believers, and they think that this is all nonsense. I understand you.
There has to be a plan B. You can be Mr. Plan A, and I can be Plan B.
No problem. I'm not gonna butt heads with you on that. We just have those positions. That's great. But you know what? I've exhausted myself, and I want to.
Okay, I've got to go too.
All right, take it easy, Claire. Fun.
Okay, you too.
I'll post this one as well. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.